Hmm, interesting. Hey, what's going on, guys? A rainy Saturday, especially raining for the next 2 weeks. I got plans today, but I think I'll still be doing a live show tomorrow here, so we'll get some people in here. And I've been sitting around this morning, listening to music and piddling around the house. Um, so I figured, hey, let's do a live show because I don't have to be anywhere till about 1 o'clock today. A little coffee, a little music. Figured I'd just chat away on things as people pop in here. If there's anybody home on a summer on August, what is this, the 3rd? On August 3rd. I'm expecting a lot of people to be popping in because we have lives and we're getting at the ass end of the summer here. All right, we got two people out there coming up, right? All right, so one of the things I've learned in like the last couple of days and stuff like that is definitely in hell I want to have good company, because it has been crazy this week since 1st of August. Crazy traffic, people coming out who only usually come out about twice a month anyway and stuff. They don't have a lot of survival skills, driving skills, and stuff like that. Nuts, lots of people hitting cars and driving away, and they're saying they didn't realize they hit anybody and things like that. So it's been dangerous out there. So I was still able to pick up a few things. And when I was actually flipping through some stuff last night and this morning, yeah, thinking about these things, thinking about people getting older and how long I've been collecting comics and stuff, I ended up picking up a book that I bought last week that was published in 1985. And then I found a great reprint edition of things I haven't read since I was a kid of Jim Steranko, Nick Fury, that brought back I was like, is this nostalgia? Or is this like the art form grabbing me all over again? And it's a little bit of both, a little bit of both. Years ago, when this was a smaller comic book community, it was actually a community. Um, we had to talk about. I was the person that would make the videos about why do we love comics. There's so much more than just reading it and the nostalgia. And I said the nostalgia was there. I mean, no doubt about it. But I think I kind of underplayed what it was because I hadn't hit an area of my collecting where that nostalgia hit me. Oh, we got some people here. All right, guys. First things first. Hey, what's up? Hey, solid four. Hey, what's up, Shannon? I'm doing good, man. Good to see you too. First things first. Now that people are popping up here and stuff, like the video, share the video, sub if you haven't subbed, get this thing on Twitter, Facebook, whatever you want, and let people know we're here and bring them in. I'm gonna be here for a little bit this morning. I think I feel good. Feel good. Ross Sanders is here. Hey, how are you guys? How are you guys doing? But for you guys, and wow, we're getting more and more people here. Now, like I said, tomorrow morning, pop in here, keep an eye out. I think I'm going to be doing an Alan Moore video where he's sort of announced his actual real retirement, supposedly again. Um, I got in here and I have a ton of stuff of Alan Moore. I'm probably not going to be doing nothing makes me feel old. I mean, nostalgic, like seeing a True Believers book or something. I bought it when it just came out. Nothing makes me feel so. I got you, Eric. I got you. Yeah, that's what I was going to talk about. Mine came from actually reading the books here. But tomorrow morning, since people are popping in here, I think we might do an Alan Moore show where I kind of shoot from the hip. I'm going back and forth on doing videos like I used to do, where I give you the history and books and the things that I remember and all the interviews I've read over the years from things that it's kind of hard to cite, and the stories that the older comic book collectors I was around used to say and stuff like that. Things you just can't find. Getting a little tired of being mined and ripped off by bigger channels. So I don't know how in depth we'll go, but it'll be shooting from the hip, and it's going to be completely like it's going to be like jazz, man. I'm just going to play some notes and see what happens. All right. Oh, got all kinds of people showing up here. In that video, we talk about Lost Girls. I've already got an issue of Lost Girls that I will be bringing up. How in depth will I go? Don't know. We'll just see tomorrow. But yeah, one of the things about Alan Moore, I'm gonna go ahead and give you a sample. I know how I'm going to start it. Years ago, I did a little. I've done many videos talking about Jack Kirby, but to me, Jack Kirby is too big to talk about his influence. Right? He's influenced everything. He influenced the Beatles. This is a guy that did comics like from the beginning, more or less. You know what I'm saying? Intern under Will Eisner and things like that, work for him and stuff. Created Captain America into the 60s. Alan Moore sort of is in that school. He's influenced so many things. It's hard just to talk about his comics. And like Kirby, Kirby created genres. He and Joe Simon created the romance comics. You know what I mean? Alan Moore created, in my opinion, genres, and I'll talk about that tomorrow. All right, we're getting some people in here. We're probably going to get back on track with our subject here. A couple months ago, I found nearly all the issue of DC's AD&D series, and it turns out one issue was signed by Jan DeRusso, the artist. I compared the signatures I found on it. It seems to be authentic. Dingo, yeah, Dingo MK. That's happened quite a bit. I just found something that was signed. Oh, last week, me and my buddy, we found issues of the Max. If you go back and watch that live show, signed by Sam Keith years ago. Sometime in the last 5 years, I found two issues of Spawn #1. One is signed by Al Simmons, and one signed by Todd McFarlane. They are authentic. I've also found the DC Titans versus Marvel's X-Men book from back in the day that Chris Claremont wrote, Walt Simonson drew, Terry Austin inked. I found it in a dollar bin for a reader copy because I have a mint copy of it. A little beat up and stuff. When I got to read that reader copy months later, I opened it up and it was signed by all three people: Chris Claremont, Simonson, and Austin. Hey, Charlton66 is here. Awesome. What's up, guys? Have I done a video on Steve Ditko? If I have, it's been so long. Maybe somewhere online I'll do a video on Ditko. All right, guys, but getting back to this nostalgia thing. For everybody's popped up, I want to repeat myself and we'll just move forward here. But like I said, like the video, share the video now. Let's get a lot of people in here. I've got some time to kill. I really don't have to be anywhere until 1 o'clock today. Just got to mail my rent off and do a few things, and that's about it. But basically, years ago in this comic book community, people would pop up and talk comics and we'd have fun. And I was the guy that popped up and I explored why we like comics. You know what I mean? It's the art form, it's the stories, the morality, things that click when we were kids. To me, there's a common characteristic amongst people who actually read comics that you really don't see what that other people have. You know what I mean? It's like we can meet each other, and as soon as we click, knowing that we click comics in some way, it doesn't matter if it's a 17-year-old kid talking to a 25-year-old woman. It doesn't matter if it's a 20-year-old, man talking to a 65-year-old man. We seem to be able to click. That's when we go to these comic conventions, we just pick up a conversation with almost anybody there, right? To me, there, I explore things like that. And then I got into the comics, and then something happened here, right? It's no secret, and it always pops up in the comments. And this channel has usually 99% of the time, when you look at how long I've been on here, has stayed positive. But sometimes you got to call it out. And there's been a lot of stuff lacking in comics where I'll say 5 years and then it goes back and further back. And to me, it feels like the last great thing that DC Comics actually did, in my opinion, was Blackest Night, and that was 10 years ago. Blows my mind how long ago it was and stuff, right? So yesterday I went out and it was just incredible how bad the traffic was. And it's the first of the month here. The next couple of days are going to be crazy and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And it is the people that come out. It's just nuts, man. But I was still able to find a few things. And one of the things I found, I got all excited, were these two issues that I got found for $1 a piece. Oh, let me get them in there. Okay. Now, if you don't recognize these, they're wraparound covers, by the way. Okay. These came out in, I think, 83. And what they did is they reprinted a lot of the early Jim Steranko Shield stuff. Jim Steranko is a guy who got into comics, worked at Charlton, came to Marvel. Jack Kirby showed him a few tricks, gave him a few pointers, and the guy took off. And he came up with over 100 new innovative ways to do storytelling in comics in a very small amount of time. And he kind of left because of many reasons, but the biggest one was how they kept messing with his stories and, editing them, copyrighting them, censoring them, Comics Code Authority, late 60s. But he brought pop art. I would say he's sort of like the Salvador Dali / Andy Warhol of comics in a way. You know what I mean? With the art that he brought, because that's who he brought to comics. He brought their influences, and He came up with ways to do double page spreads and stuff like that. And there's always an infamous story that's always been told. That's not a secret. Watch me not be able to find it now. Of where Marvel kind of bungled and actually made a page better, if you will, where they censored him. And when they tried to fix the censoring, bam, they made it into something more than what it was. What do we got here? It's funny you should mention. Comic Crypt of Castle Hills is here. Charleston 66 is here. Solid 4 Bins is here. Go to their channels. Let me put it out there, man. It's funny you should just solid four string bin. It's funny you should mention Jim Steranko. I found a website dedicated to him, and it even showed painted covers from some shadow paperbacks and other adventures in sci-fi art. Oh, that's awesome! I'll have to check that out. What always cracked me about Jim Steranko is he drew himself on the covers as the heroes. I mean, it's hilarious. Um, okay. 31-year-old male from the UK talking to people older or younger than me around the world about their hobby. Yeah, it happens, man. I've talked to all sorts of people, and it's actually about comics. Here's the Salvador Dali stuff, influence and stuff, or something like that. But anyway, so I was reading this, and one of the many things I always talked about with comics is that the innovation of an artist, right? People finding new ways. We had those generations of the Joe Kuberts, Will Eisners, Jack Kirby's, Hal Foster's, Gardner Fox's. Does not leave out the writers and stuff like that. But they were sort of making the rules. These poor kids from the streets. Um, most of them. You had Bob Kane, who was the son of a lawyer or something, so he understood contracts and stuff. But anyway, Bill Fingers and all these guys, they were making the rules on comics, the psychology of storytelling, the use of color, how to make a page flow, how to make the reader's eyes get in there, how to slow the reader down, how to engage. And some guys were just slapping that stuff in there because they were kids themselves and they were writing what they thought was cool. And the dream was to have a Sunday funny, like Prince Valiant and Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, all that stuff back then and stuff, whatever, right? So that was the dream and everything like that. And then all of a sudden you had these guys come in who were getting influenced by the pop cultures and counterculture of the beatniks and stuff that came in here and stuff. Like, so comics grew and you got this second generation of kids who weren't ashamed of being in comics. Your Lin Wein, Lin Wein, Marv Wolfman, those guys that came up, Steranko in a way. And Steranko's an interesting cat with his series, man. That guy was a carnival barker at a carnival, an escape artist. He was such a interesting fellow that Jack Kirby based Mr. Miracle on him. Okay, from the New Gods and stuff. And then if you go to the Justice League Unlimited cartoons, there's a episode I think called "The Ties That Bind" with Mr. Miracle that Steranko wrote. I think he gave the story and somebody adapted it for him, but there you go. So that's what was kind of getting me. There's these great histories and sometimes the people who make the comics are as interesting as the comics. And I think that's one of the things that's missing now, that mystique of the creator and stuff, because they get on Twitter and I'm sorry, but most of the creators that I've interacted with online and since Twitter popped up and stuff like that have been absolute just ass. Which is a shame because if you go way back, and I talked about it on comicboards.com or something. Man, I used to talk to Kurt Busiek there, Walt Simonson, a few people on these message boards. I mean, it was public. There was other people chiming in, but we talked directly back then. It was fantastic. We talked comics. They would answer a question every now and then, and people had the tact to just treat them like people, or nothing really bad happened. And that all blew up when a dude who was writing the Black Panther came up there and told the Black Panther board that this place was a joke. Come on over here, and they didn't know how to handle him. It was disgusting. And I was just sort of like, I can't believe this. And then we had Dan Slott pop up and he made the news with the way he treated a fan on there and talked to people when it came up. So that was part of the nostalgia came back on this is, this tongue in cheek thing where Jim Steranko, we got to know these creators through their works in a way. And sometimes it was accurate. Everybody always says, don't meet your heroes, Tim, and all this stuff like that. But that's one of the magic things missing from comics. These guys were actual rock stars through their productivity. You know what I mean? You thought it was cool and you wanted to do comics and you're like, ooh, it's a Steranko. But there was something a lot more personal about what these guys were putting into their work, whether they're putting in things they were fans of. To me, I think Kirby's magic is that he read a ton of sci-fi books and the pulps and the novels and stuff, and he loved this stuff, and that's what he would pull. I heard stories about people could just look around his room and see his shelves just freaking bleeding this stuff that he read, that he loved and everything like that. So I mean, that's what I mean. There's an intangible thing there missing. Pretty good man, Steve. Getting ready to leave. Okay, here we go. Morbius for French comics. Okay. Hate to leave, Tim. We'll be back later. Awesome. Okay. I bought a few issues 2 days back. Got a few X-Men, a crossover between Ninja High School, Sergeant Rock, Unknown Soldier, and Speed Racer, Archie Comics. I've been trying to diversify my genres lately. To me, there's nothing that can be more satisfying in your collection is when you do have a diverse collection, when you have a good mixture of things that's in there, right? That you enjoy. Not diverse for diverse sake, but a little mix in there. I've got manga here, indie comics, Vertigo comics, little monsters, just all kinds of things. Just get what you love. Um, oh, nice. Pete Morisi moonlighted at, I think it's his name, moonlighted as a comic artist while being a New York City police officer. Oh, that's cool. No one knew who he was. Oh, that's fantastic. That reminds me of this cartoon one time that I saw when I was a kid. Not to go all ADA here and stuff like that, but I remember the cartoon. The dude was a cockroach. This reporter had died and got reincarnated as a cockroach, but he still wrote an article for the newspaper. And in the cartoon, he would jump on the keys of a typewriter, and nobody knew who he was. Anybody remembers what that is? Let me know. I'd love to look that up. But anyway, getting back to this stuff, right? So the guys were the rock stars, right? And then you had these happy accidents where these guys would create the Marvel style back then, which has caused a lot of controversy of who really created what and how much of the books and stories and stuff were done by who. But you had Stranko here who was writing and drawing, right? But one of the things they always did to Steranko, and this is just it, people love Steranko, man. He came off like a little bit of a rebel, I think, for these older guys, because I remember hearing these Steranko stories at least since I was 6 or 7. So we're talking about 79 and 80. I heard about Steranko before I ever saw his artwork that I could comprehend, right? And they would always talk about this page where they put in, and it was this infamous page that DC changed a panel and made it dirtier, more suggestive and stuff, right? And as I got older, I'd hear people talk about Stranko, how Marvel would he would put cleavage, one line of cleavage for characters, and they would wipe it out. And they would, the Comics Code Authority would ask them to get rid of cleavage and little things like that. He was bringing a sexuality to a comics that was overt and open, apparently, right? In other words, these were living people, spies. It was the James Bond era, the Cold War era. You know what I mean? Uh, you know, this is when you had characters in movies called Pussy Galore, things like that, right? So, Nick Fury, he just kind of beamed it in there and stuff. But this is the infamous page, and I'm going to put the page on Twitter. You can look it up. I think I want to say this is from Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. #2, after they came out of Strange Tales and got his own book. But he's sitting here with the Countess. I can't remember her name right now. They're just laying there, and you can already see in that very first panel how there's no cleavage line. They got rid of that. And you come up here, and this is what's amazing. This is a page with no dialogue, and to me, this page still holds up. And as you can see, where is it at? Over here on the chair, right there. I know it's going to be blurry, but that is a gun in a holster, right? So we look at all this. We're looking at Rose. She's thinking about it. She's kind of in a panel. Come over here, we get these lips. Now, this originally was going to be the phone off the hook. For you kids out there that don't remember this, phones were connected to the walls. You didn't have caller ID. And if you didn't want to be bothered, you took the phone off the hook. I don't know why they just didn't take it out of the wall, but that was the thing to do. They kissed. And right here was supposed to be in the image of, I think, Nick Fury and the Countess were sort of on their knees on the floor, and Nick Fury was a little bit higher than her, and they were kissing. Well, they took it out and they superimposed this gun in a holster, this big gun in a tight little holster. They superimposed it into the story. And I actually got to hear Jim Steranko talk about this in person, and to the person I was in line in front of me in line when I was had some books to get signed by him. I got the book somewhere up in here or something like that. I could, whip it out and stuff like that. And I'm like, what a great story! This great story behind the story told by this great storyteller, whether you like him or not. I think it's kind of funny. Jim Stranko kind of cracks me up as a character himself in the most respectful ways. He's just brilliantly entertaining in my eyes, right? Steranko's History of Comics was the first time I heard of Jim Steranko. I have an issue with that there, Charlton. Then I saw his amazing Shadow paperback cover. It's awesome, man. Um, and I'm trying to think who it was. Was it Bill Tucci on She or maybe Kabuki or something? But Jim Steranko would come out of the blue every now and then and do a cover for people in the comics now. The last thing I can remember him doing is that he actually did a Watchman Rorschach cover variant, which I would love to get a hold of more for my fan of being a Watchman. And things like that. But you know, uh, yeah, Stranko, I think that mystique that he's been able to keep. Now we've met Stranko and we've had this talk and stuff like that. But when I meet Stranko, it's kind of funny because like he's from the Rat Pack era. You know what I mean? Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. and Frank Sinatra and stuff ought to be hanging out with him. And he definitely has a wig now. He try to keeps the little bit of a, I guess it's a pompadour look. You know what I'm saying? But where I've seen him off and on at the cons, I've only met him 2 or 3 times or something like that over the years. Being in line with him, he always has a nice line, and you pay to get the book signed, and he's got his signature down to where it's artwork and stuff. But we're all going to get old. We're all there. We all get heavier. We get smaller. Things happen, and things like we go through our second puberty and our second childhood. You can get so old, you go through a second childhood. Just letting you know. But it always cracks me up because Stranko is getting smaller and that wig is staying the same size. And I'm just like, oh my, oh my. So that was one thing I saw. And then I whipped out this bad boy, Swords of the Swashbucklers, 1985. This was a 12 issue. I know a little bit more about it now. 12-issue miniseries that followed the Swords of the Swashbucklers graphic novel. And Bill Mantlo fans are alive and kicking out there, right? I was not a Bill Mantlo fan back in the day, nor did I dislike the guy. You know what I'm saying? I had no opinion of him. Um, he was just to me, he just felt like a go-to guy for Marvel who will carry a book, right? No, no, no. He carried ROM and all these things. He was an idea man, apparently, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. A lot of the stuff he did is loved. Micronauts, ROM. I did this big spiel last week, but this has Jackson Butch Geist doing the art on it. And to me, this guy is an artist. I mean, this dude has a style of art that's not dated, in my opinion. And I've seen sketches he does. And he seems to be amazing, as you can see this, right? So it's 1985. In 1985, I would have been 12. And last week, when I was showing my haul video from where I got this book at the 22nd Virginia and uh, vintage comic book show and stuff like that, I was showing things like Barry Windsor Smith doing Weapon X. Okay. I was showing Bernie Wrightson doing some Batman. I was naming some names and some characters and stuff. And some of the comments in that show before and after was really making people think about the state compared to the talent and these amazing stories that were being told back then. So I kind of read that, and all of a sudden I sat down last night to read this, and I opened up the first page. I know this is going to be blurry, probably where I'm streaming, but these pages and these ships that are in space, these clipper ships that are in space behind the space, and Jackson Geiss's artwork in this amazingly detailed and well-paced story. This plays with the eyes, the subtle things that carries your eye down the page, showing you where to read next, telling these stories, catching you up. Little details. It seems so simple now in the design work. Blew me away. And I was like, is this nostalgia? And it was just this overwhelming quality that the decompressed storylines having. The two-dimensional artwork really does look two-dimensional and stuff, man. And I'm just sort of like, this was just a comic through Epic Comics that they were doing. And, this is when you had comics left and right back then. The quality of work the artists and the writers put in back then just capsizes most of what's going on today. And what do I hear today? What I hear today is people asking me to check out Immortal Hulk. I have had someone, I'm sorry, I think it's Huey or somebody has sent me a message, or it's on my Twitter in public, asking me to check out the Hickman X-Men books that are going on. It's things like that, and it finally dawned on me what's going on in the world of reboots, revamps, remixing of the heroes, still gutting what past creators are done. This is back when people were trying to do more original stuff that was probably influenced from what they read as kids, going back to the pulps and stuff. I mean, we're talking about pirates here, space pirates here and stuff. You know what I mean? So right there, you have sort of like Star Wars and stuff. Yet they were able to take these influences to where you didn't really pick up on it. You couldn't pinpoint what it was because they were just their take was much more original. It was inspired, not ripped off, not rehashed, not we're just going to recycle this and do as little as we can. And what do we have now? We have Kate Perry getting sued, well, lost a lawsuit for plagiarism against a Christian rapper and stuff or something, right? That was when I heard that on the news, I was like, that's perfect for what I'm seeing in comics, apparently. You know what I mean? She changed just a few things, but people who are in the know are like, come on, come on. So did nostalgia bringing me to my knees when I opened these up? Or is it the quality of storytelling? And then it happened. It all came together for me. Last week, if you saw my haul, I said, I've seen ARAC pop up, the Son of Thunder book. It lasted 50 issues. I did a little reading on it. Roy Thomas is on it. Some of the comments I got was or messages or something. Somewhere online, somebody told me this felt like a Conan ripoff at first and stuff. I'm sort of like, it's a Native American Indian going to Europe through Vikings or something, right? I got this big concept. So I figured I'd just try issue 6 since it looked like he's fighting a vampire, and we'll get a monster story out there and stuff like that. And then Jared Osmore popped up and said he remembers it being incredibly dull, and it is. This is from 1982. It's incredibly dull. How this book lasted 50 issues, if this is the quality of the storytelling in this, I mean, it's Roy Thomas. He's a great writer. I don't know how this book lasted 50 issues in this, because this was just, it was wow. Wow. That's all I got to say is just wow. Right. So that immediately told me that, yes, there probably is a tinge of nostalgia when it comes to something that comes from the 80s, even though I didn't read it. You know what I mean? That era, that feel, the colors, the pastel of colors back then, who knows, but the Stranko stuff, no, because I wasn't a kid when I read that stuff. I heard about Stranko before the book and stuff. And then I read that ARAC and I'm like, I'm not being very forgiving because of the era. It's the quality of the storytelling that it's what keeps me going in this stuff, right? I mean, if you can see these two books right here, this is an Agent of Shield, like from 88 or 89, and Astonishing Tales with Deathlock, and they go together even though they're over 10 years apart. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. It seems like one era did influence the other, but it's not hash work. You know what I mean? It's like it's not stealing. And that's really what's missing from the books today, an originality, bringing something to the table that's brand new or influence, like Stranko bringing pop art to it. I can talk in circles here, and I'm sure if I just like shut my mouth for a minute and take a pause, I can think of better metaphors and symbolisms and things like that to bring in there, man. I can even bring music into this, right? I have been listening to Pink Floyd's The Wall. I usually say that digital and things on CD, if you listen to the original, is thin and soulless, but I'm going to say that whoever remastered uh, that CD of the Pink Floyd's The Wall was a master. It's fantastic. I've been listening to Quadrophenia by the Who. I've been listening to Tommy by the Who, these rock operas and stuff, right? I've always listened to these things, but I've really been paying attention to them where I'm driving so much for work. And I can't help but bring it back to music today when, you turn on the radio to listen to it stuff, how it's just rehashed stuff where I think in 4 steps I can get a drum beat, a keyboard sound, and a rap, because rap has no melody, and just kind of come up with I think anybody could do it now, wherein you can listen to Tommy that was written by a 23-year-old kid And it's got this poetic things in it. In your eyes, I see the miles, and oh my God, I can just go on and on. And I'm sort of like, where's this rich counterculture that's out there that express themselves? Where are they at? And I'm like, are they on their phone? Okay, I love that Steranko plays cool 50s jazz at his signing table. Oh, he wasn't doing that when I was there, Charlton. Oh man. Charlton's right on the Bill Mantlo stuff. Awesome. Yep, he was a great writer. I mean, I'm late to the game, man. I'm late to the game. This is stuff I was reading, probably where I was more of a DC guy. Butch is underrated. Ron Lech, you're damn right he is. And Ron, I've been getting your messages. My phone just won't open them on the app, so I'm going to try on the. I'm going to try on the. I want to have to take the app for YouTube off my phone and re-upload it. Something's glitching with it. When I do a live show from my phone, it always drops it too. So don't feel bad. Um, it's not nostalgia; it's a love for great talent and creating a great comic book. That's right, there, Charlton. I agree with you 100%. That ARAC Comics cemented it for me. Was I just getting old and I'm wanting things a certain way? No, no, no. There was crappy comics. There's always been crappy comics. Even by even our great talents misfire. You know what I mean? They misfire every now and then. Yeah, and you believe things will come back around. Yeah, eventually, eventually. Like every year, you'll have your duds. Yep. Without nostalgia or research, please, Tim, would you think read books? I don't understand what you're asking, Ross. Without nostalgia or research, please, Tim, would you read books? I don't know. Oh, I'm not sure what you're asking, Ross. Hey, Mastodon Comics and Collecting is out there. Classics album by the Who. Yeah, I love the Who and stuff like that, right, man? So yeah, that's kind of what's happened here. A few other things I picked up over the years to let you know that there was, in my opinion, the world building in comics, the things that I love. I ended up double dipping. One of these books I got just to have out, so I don't have to dig my Starman box out and dig it out, because this is a great comic I found for $1. To me, a lot of this stuff in the Starman books is just so underrated again, right? And the other one is I'm just kind of picking up where I can, because I'm finding a ton of them. I found issue 3 somewhere and stuff like that. I think issue 1's probably, way out there to try to get and stuff. But I ended up having to get these. But I've been finding why the Last Man left and right. Now, again, the thing about this is that this book was balanced for any kind of social issues that were brought up. Brian K. Vaughan, to me, was responsible in giving a counterpoint in a lot of things eventually that were brought up. The biggest one I'm talking about is there was some women who were going around wanting to take down the Catholic Church, because they were saying misogyny and all the stuff. I mean, there's no men left on the world, supposedly. And they bring up all the stuff that, their church has done in history and all this stuff to women and stuff. And then the lady who was defending the church said, what about the Magdalene churches or missions, Magdalene missions or something? And that's where the ones that, the nuns ran them. And when people would come for sanctuary at the churches with the nuns would put them as pretty much sweatshops and slave labor or something, right? Just presenting both sides and stuff. That was what was cool about this book. And then, like I said, I was talking about Starman. This is Starman's Secret Files and Origins from 1990. And this is just a fun, fantastic book. So much fun in this book. I mean, this is one of those books you can just sit down and read the story, read the next story, and you got some who's pages in here. A timeline of Starman, so you can pick up the series and see what's going on. A neat way to introduce the characters. This was just so much fun. I didn't really realize how much I really liked this issue until I'm like, oh boy, I have one I can keep out. And that's what I mean, man. Some comics that I think what they're missing is Starman is set in Opal City. And Starman said he didn't, he kind of really didn't interact that much with the DC universe. Solomon Grundy popped up, Batman popped up, the original Green Lantern popped up. We even had the Legion as the book went on. He went out into space. The book, but the book had time to breathe and grow. We had characterization in there, and you got to know Jack and stuff. And Jack Knight's an interesting cat, man, because even the people who read it that knew me would tell me this is you. Me, you want to know me in the '90s? You need to pick up Starman. It's really weird reading Jack Knight sometimes. And down to the haircut. If I had thought about it, some of my people at work found some pictures of me in the late '90s, and I have my duck bill. I have my it. Yeah, I have proof. I have photographic evidence. Where are we at here? Scott Neely, hey, I'm here just putting stuff on my checklist. Nice, man. Hopefully, get it cheap first before you want to know if you want to invest. That's why I always say sample it if I recommend something. Brian K. Vaughn will be at Baltimore this year. Nice, 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 Steve. That's awesome. I'm just looking at my shelf to see what I have of his. Um, I meant new or older comic books like music without no nostalgia research at them at all. Yeah, I read that stuff. You can pick up. That's the thing about older books. Older books, 99% of the time will have a recap page where you can pick up. The good thing, one of the things I do kind of miss, even though I hated having that page wasted when I was reading it as a kid, um, was the recap. Stan Lee once said, and I do believe he said it, that one of the things you have to remember is any comic has the potential to be. I'm not being verbatim here, but anyway, every comic that somebody that is printed has the potential to be somebody's first comic, and the first thing you need to do is get in there and give them the plot and what's happened before, so they can just pick up and read the story. Right? I think that's definitely needed. And I think one of the best things that the Marvel used to do, at least I think it was in the late '90s, is that you would have a recap and a list of the characters in the front of the books, and they even got into it so much that the book folded out. Now I thought that was a little much, where the cover would have an end. You can unfold it and get it. That was a little much. One of the reasons Mel Brooks movies are so successful, in my opinion, is that he gives the audience the plot in the first 5 minutes. Okay, Spaceballs. These are the bad guys. They want to steal the air. Go. That's your plot. You know, they need to get back to that. I still need to finish my haul videos. Have you guys been watching them? Last Friday and Saturday, I bought 2 long boxes of comics that were 3 for $1. That's 600 comics. Scott, I've done video years ago. I've got a couple videos. By no means, I mean, grain thought here. Take your time with those videos. I did haul videos where I had 3 or 4 boxes of long comics that I got for free. 3 or 4 long boxes of comics. I did about killed myself. I was able to make a nice little. I was able to make a nice little playlist there, but it's called my greatest comic book haul ever or something. Okay, I've caught a few Scott. They make me jealous. Okay, go check out Scott Neely's. Check him out in the comments here and check out his books. Yeah, I hate going over 10 minutes. Yeah, I think that's what it is, and I wouldn't try to do them all at once. If I were you, I'd do videos and do something different. Come back around to it. Pace your videos out and have your audience grow and be able to catch up with those videos if they're into it. I mean, that's how I do with old school comic book community stuff. I don't know about YouTube now. I've been trying to figure out how many issues can you read in one week. Well, the thing about it is, when it comes to comics, that's an interesting question that we can actually dissect the dynamic of a comic book and how many can you read in a week. Okay. Well, with comic books, there's a rule of thumb. You shouldn't have over 120 words per page. Yet if you get a Roy Thomas book, you can forget about it. So if I'm going to read Roy Thomas All-Star Squadron, which ran, what was it, 60 issues or something like that, and a couple annuals, and then I've got the miniseries that spawned out of that, like Batman versus the Justice America versus Justice Society of America with Batman's Diary, things like that. I don't think I could read those in a week. So it's really hard to say. I say it would depend on the creator and how many who does. I think you could read a ton of Alan Moore in a week, believe it or not, the more sophisticated books. I think you could fly through Sin City and no problem. I think you could read the big damn book of Sin City in 2 days if you just sit down and do it. And that's not even like hitting it hard. I mean, New 52 Justice League. I read the first arc 6 issues in half an hour. Oh, now that's one of the reasons I don't buy newer books. I could read Marvel books and New 52 books at the stand or at the comic book shop right there in front of it without even trying. I mean, I can read those books in 30 seconds, and I'm just sort of like nothing happens. That's how it felt with those books. I had a New 52 18-issue run of Green Lantern that I had saved up because I needed 1 or 2 issues and stuff because it was Jeff Johns. And it drove me nuts reading those books. They were horrible. And by the time I got to issue 18, they were still in the same situation they were at issue number 1. Can you imagine trying to read that book monthly for a year and a half just to find out you wasted a year and a half for them to get nowhere? Thing is fighting Hulk August 14th in Fantastic Four number 13. Who do you think gets a win with this legendary rivalry? Well, see, unfortunately, if you go way back to the Silver Age of the whole point of the Hulk and the Thing fighting, the Thing was the tragic monster more than the Hulk was. The Hulk was the monster in the vein of a different of uh trying to think what the word is. You felt for Frankenstein's monster. You kind of felt for Mr. Dr. Jekyll more than Mr. Hyde, and that was kind of the Hulk. You felt for Bruce Banner, but the Thing was a monster with the same mind, and he couldn't go back and forth. Hulk was always supposed to be the one to beat the Thing. The Thing is not supposed to beat the Hulk. The Hulk, that's the Thing is symbolically fighting what he could have been, and the Hulk hates him because even though he's a monster, he's more together in the mind. I don't know how intentional Kirby and Lee got into it and stuff, but there's more to the Hulk and the Thing fighting. And when you forget that, that's when a fight doesn't count. Oh, we're just seeing who's stronger. You know what I'm saying? Hulk is stronger. He's angry. He's emotionally uneven, if you will. And the Thing is weaker but smarter and has a family and friends. They both Hulk Thing is fighting what he's afraid he'll fully become, and he has to be reminded of what he could lose, but he can't see the forest for the trees. And the Hulk, there's more to it. That's what I mean. These fights have to mean a bit more. Jimmy the Boogie Woogie Man Valiant in wrestling puts exactly what I'm trying to say in words that he said. He said, if you want to fight and to draw some money, you don't go for the belt. You go for you go for a personal fight. You got to make it personal. New books you could read a lot in a week. Yep. What about audiobooks? Audiobooks, I can finish an audio. I don't know. Just man, there's so much more to ask about this. Audiobooks, if you're trying to listen to something like Game of Thrones on audiobooks, who knows? Who knows? I have audiobooks where they were short stories by Joe Hill, and I never finished it. Yet I listened to the audiobook of The Flash's Marv Wolfman doing a novelization of The Crisis on Infinite Earths. I read that in exactly how long it took for them to read it, straight through. That sounds like X-Men Red. It was 11 issues of garbage with one arch and theme. Hate is bad. Yeah. I once read all the Chris Claremont, John Byrne, Iron Fist in one day and still had time to read the first 6 issues of Spider-Woman that day. I have no idea how I read that all in one day because you were into it. They sucked you into the story and you were in that world and time meant nothing around you. Okay. It's a real psychological effect that hits, right? I'm not saying these guys need to hypnotize you or come in there, man, but when a story is interesting and it grabs you and it pulls you in, and you get that lightning in the bottle where the artist is able to tell that story with a pacing that is just sweet and perfect. That's why you don't snap out of it. You can read books or anything and they can do something so stupid you have to look up and be like, what, that was stupid, and they snap you out of it. And it's so hard to get back into something when you do that. And TV shows have done it. You know what I'm talking about. You know, I wasn't even speed reading. I was free that day and just sit down and read it. Yeah, yeah. That's not unique. That's how it used to be to read comics all the time, even a movie or a novel. I mean, it's still possible, but no. Game of Thrones audiobook was great. Yeah, yeah. Kind of like Doctor Who. Yeah. All right. So, two of the other things I kind of found that brought up some nostalgia. I don't know if I'm going to show this one. I don't know, but I found this for $2 and the record scratched up. But I found Song of the South, Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, and Brer Bear, the album from 1970. Has a little storybook in it. It goes with the record collection. But something I found that really got me, and I think the girlfriend will play this for sure. I found this. It's the Indiana Jones DVD adventure game from 2008. And I have a DVD player here. Also, I have two VHS, two VCRs in this house and stuff like that. So it looked like most of the pieces were in here. It's supposed to have an 8-sided die, but I don't know if I looked at that. But I found my bag of dice from, oh my God, 1994 or something in this little black bag where I used to um, play White Wolf role playing games back in the 90s. The Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse, Vampire of the Dark Ages. I never had a set of dice in the 80s though, but the DM always had a great big huge like bowl or something full of all kinds of dice, so it didn't matter. I thought that was kind of cool. So that's another reason I was making sure I didn't get into this big oh my god, am I just on a nostalgic kick here? What we got here? I can read Uncanny X-Men 94 to 143 or the Press Titans running a weekend. Parker is hey, what's up, brother? Oh yeah, man. Now those are you, I mean, you just mentioned the two great runs that went neck and neck there in the early 80s and stuff like that, right? And the fact that you can read Claremont, who got wordier and wordier, more words and more words as things went along, that's pretty good, man. Now the Perez Titans run, Wolfman had a few issues there where he did step back and let Perez tell that story, but there's a few where he caught you up, with some words there. X-Men Red was a lot of fun. They lived under the sea and renamed Cerebro to Cerebro. 10 out of 10 because it's good stuff. We got people talking here. All right, throw me another question here, guys, because I might be ready to wrap up here. For you guys that have popped in over the last 45 minutes here, tomorrow morning, last night I had to take some medication to help me sleep, right? So I'm sort of in a little bit of a fog. So tomorrow morning, sometime and Sunday when I wake up, we're going to shoot for a Alan Moore retrospective video, as I was asked to do a couple weeks ago on Twitter. Um, Unfortunately, due to my videos being mined and ripped off, going way back on my videos and stuff by bigger channels and not being cited, having a guy down in Florida use my videos to write his newspaper article and get paid, stuff like that. I don't know how in depth I will get, but we're going to have a lot of fun with it. I've got 3 or 4 short boxes, I think, of Alan Moore work stuff on my shelf. There's no telling what's going to go. So we're going to get in there and kind of look over his career, pull out a few books. It's going to be like jazz. I'm just going to play a few notes and see what comes out. All right. So stay tuned for that. And if you guys have popped in, like the video, share it to let everybody know we're here. There has been a gradual increase in viewership. In I think I've got like 11 or 12 subs. There are people out there who just want to talk comics and are getting kind of sick of the same old drama out there. And that's one of the things when we talk about that kind of drama, just leave it in there. I'll throw you a video for a bone. Okay, what's going on here? This is how you know you're amongst your people. I've agreed with everything that's been said so far. Paulo, home from lunch. Oh, Paulo, what's up, Paulo? He's popped in for lunch. Tomorrow morning, what time is it going to be? Don't know. Usually I do these things between 9:30 and 10 on a Sunday morning. Um, and if you haven't been been with the channel very long or anything like that, somehow for some reason it's usually raining on Sunday mornings when I do these shows here. And Sunday mornings was the time as a kid that I would grab a stack of comics, pile up on my bed, and read them. So yeah, it sets a good mood there. We covered 2000 AD stuff. I've got some stuff here that I'll throw out there, man. I'll throw out there. I'll do what I can. Like I said, it's going to be off the hip. It's not going to be like an old Howler Mouse video where I give you the timeline and the dates and stuff, just whatever pops in my head. And some people have been nice enough to send me some of those 2000 AD stories in collected editions. So yeah, I have them. Blue Note, you know what? The Alan Moore thing might end up being a 2 or 3 parter because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get in there, start getting into it. Memories are going to start coming up. The show's going to be over. I'm going to be like, I should have said this. I should have said that. It's Alan Moore, man. Me and Alan Moore go back to like 84, like everybody else in America. You know what I mean? And everything came after that. Well, I won't be at church tomorrow. Had a fire in the warehouse and the water damage. Church is canceled, but we will have it online. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's the whole thing. I go to church maybe once or twice a month. All right, crumble points here. All right. Mr. Gretzky 9966 has popped up. Well, guys, you guys are coming here towards the end of the show, man. If you guys have got questions or anything, throw them out there because I think we're going to wind it up. But I mean, I'll stay as long, I've got another hour to kill if you guys can make this interesting here. I've said what I had to say and went through the books I have and showed some stuff. And tomorrow we're definitely going to have a good time with the Alan Moore stuff. Yeah, Ron. Yeah, I got people out there. Nice. Okay, guys, thanks for popping up. Thanks for being here. If I get back later today, I'm going to the movies with some friends, and we're going to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm not I need to get out of here. There we go, YouTube. I think I'm back. But anyway, I watched the Boys TV show. I have a few things to say about that. So there may be another stream later this afternoon or something, depending on what's going on here. Okay, guys. So Um, if I get time, I'll do another one today. Like I said, like the video, share the video on Twitter, subscribe, let the comic book people know that we're here. There are people who still read comic books. It's amazing. It's amazing. They read their comic books. Oh, what do we got here? Thanks, guys. So who is Keanu Reeves going to play? Surfer, Warlock? And I think the reason I love the X-Men and Titans run was a beautiful combo of art and story. We were spoiled with Miller on Daredevil, more of a Sting. Speaking of Red Vitamin Blue popped up. Speaking of Joe Hill, how are you doing on it? I am finished with it, and it fizzled at the end, my friend. He just it was in Maine yesterday and had about 60 pages left. Red Vitamin Blue was in Maine yesterday, and he had about 60 pages left. So I felt I kind of finished the book while I was there. I finished it also. I think it's a great story. The book It. I read all 1,157 pages of It finally. And what was wild is apparently you're going to kill me on this, but for people who don't follow me on Instagram or Facebook, whatever, I was talking about it. I started reading it in like 1988 or something. I got so far along, put the book down, lost it, whatever. I mean, I was in high school. It probably wasn't even my copy. In the 90s, I ran across another copy of It, the book. It's so big. And I ended up picking up right where I left off and read it some more. Same thing happened in the 2000s. Now, here's what's strange. When I got to the end of It, I started remembering everything I had read. So apparently, I actually did finish It in the 2000s and just forgot about it. But when I was reading it, I thought it fell apart at the end. There's enough great story in this huge, massive volume. You're not wasting your time. But when he got to, I'm not gonna, when he got to the end, I was like, "What did you do? What did you do?" He just went on to hell with it. As far as Keanu Reeves, I personally would like to see in the Marvel. I can think of more DC characters Keanu Reeves could be because he's chill. There's a few that are chill. You know what I'm saying? But to me, Keanu Reeves should have been Iron Fist, or I can see him being Adam Warlock to a certain extent. Okay, I don't know. Adam Warlock has to be somebody who can bring a lot of depth, and I can see Adam Warlock. I can see him channeling some Neo from the Matrix to be Adam Warlock. I'd have to get into that. It's the spiritual side of things. Thoughts on crossovers like X-Men and Teen Titans from 82? They were cool and they were events, exactly what they should have been. A lot of them were wasteful, but it's things. It felt like dream teams. They should have kept things like that an event and kept them special. Now they happen all the time. Yeah, the gang bang. Yeah, the sexual stuff in there. There's one scene in there where I don't know what King was thinking, but it actually probably didn't cause outrage because he kept it in context of a story. But there's another scene in there with voyeurism, golden showers, and a few things going on where I felt like Stephen King was getting off on it more than adding to the story because you could take it out of the story and you wouldn't miss it. You know what I'm saying? Oh, is the fiance going to let you have all the pop culture around the house, or are you going to stick it all in one room? Parker is a Parker. That's the whole deal, man. I handle that stuff up front and stuff like that. There's no letting me do anything. You get me, you get the full package, right? If I use my best judgment, if we end up getting a smaller house, of course, I'm not going to expect to be able to spread this stuff all over the place, but you got to keep my stuff in mind. You know what I mean? All my stuff fits in a room. You can have the rest of the house, is my opinion of it. You know what I mean? Yeah, but this thing, I'm 46 years old. This is the first time I've thought about marriage in 15 years, 14 years, whatever stuff like that. I'm at a point where I'm with her because I want to be with her, not because I need her, and she knows it. I'm not saying anything here where I'm trying to come off like the big man, or anything like that. But yeah, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. You also got to understand, this doesn't come first anyway. You know what I mean? If we end up living in a smaller place so we can get a bigger place later, you may not see this stuff, but whatever, whatever. Crumble Point, I like to see Keanu write a comic book just to see what happened. I think it'd be very spiritual. I think he would. I think he'd make you cry. I think Keanu wouldn't go straight John Wick on our ass. He'd go a little bit spiritual, I would imagine. Pedo King. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'd call Stephen King a pedo king, but a shock king, maybe. Shock king. See what I did there? Thoughts on other horror authors such as Clive Barker, Peter Straub, Gary Brander, creator of The Howling, and Cameron's Closet. Gary Brander, I'm glad you said that name because it wouldn't have come to me. Um, Very underrated guy. Peter Straub, I don't get it. The guy is a solid writer. I read his stuff. I feel like I'm reading something from somebody. It's kind of like he's stuck in an era, in my opinion. Um, and I mean, he's a great writer. The talent is there, but he's never got me. Clive Barker. The thing about it is, I don't think horror gets me like it does other people. Okay, we're not talking about slasher films. We're talking about things that really get in your soul and scare the hell out of you in the storytelling. Straub is a great storyteller. Straub can write a scene in the kitchen, and by the time you're done reading that, you know what the freaking wallpaper looks like without him describing it. You know what the pattern on the dishes are. He puts you there. That's what I think. That's Straub's talent. If when he, oh my God, I'm going to Blue Rose books. Oh, is that what it was called? But yeah, I've read two or three of those, man. And Straub is a great writer, but I swear when I read his stuff, I feel like I'm in an era of time, and he'll build up. I don't feel a lot of tension in his stuff that's consistent. But when he gets you, he gets you. Clive Barker, he goes the other way around with it. With the Clive Barker story, I feel like the tension's always there. He never really like brings you down to where you can get the good scare. To me, Clive Barker can be exhausting, but I haven't read a lot of their stuff. Okay. Trying to think of a horror writer I like that a lot of people don't talk about, but I have to go downstairs and look at my shelf. I haven't read the stuff forever. I'm more of a sci-fi guy. Stephen King is weird. Like and share, guys. Like the Haunting from '63. Presentations has a lot to do with being a great writer. Yeah, maybe that's what I was trying to say there, man. But Peter Straub and stuff. I mean, I say go out and buy all these guys' books. Give them a sample and stuff. But when I read Peter Straub, it's really odd. He really makes me feel like I'm in the late '70s, early '80s all the time. I wish I could remember what those books were. The Blue Rose. He had a series of books that all attached to each other. Should Killdozer count as a horror story or a science fiction story? Killdozer. Let me think who that is. It's right. It's right. I'm getting. I took sleeping medicine last night. It's getting me. Anne Rice. Anne Rice wrote a brilliant book, Interview with a Vampire. She world built. She made a culture heavily influenced with, you know, New Orleans, if you will, very French, and all that stuff. I think it's fantastic. Her point of view storytelling was fantastic in that. She's mined it ever since. And I used to have a friend on here who was actual friends with Anne Rice, and she would send him transcripts or books before they were published. Things that went out. So I got to see some of her mummy books. I think the mummy or yeah, I think it was the Mummy books or something like that. Um, Anne Rice is somebody if you love, man. But the Vampire Lestat book, the actual one where he became a rock star and all this stuff, I was just sort of like I couldn't handle her witches stories. I'm just not an Anne Rice fan, but I get where she's coming from. Anne Rice brings me down when I read her stuff. I feel like somebody is substituting blood for alcoholism or something. You know what I mean? The addiction is there. She has depression, and I think she had a drinking problem. I don't know. Pacing and flow also helps. I read so many novels that felt way too short or way too long. I've been thinking about how important pacing is lately. Did you watch the Into the Spider-Verse movie? And if so, did you enjoy it? That's Parker. It's on Netflix. I haven't brought myself to watch it yet. Maybe I will. Maybe I will. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, when it comes to I feel like I'm done with the Marvel movies after Endgame. Like we got our payoff. I went and watched the Spider-Man Far From Home after that because that's supposed to be the epilogue. Um, and that's the thing, I want my Spider-Man to be a bit pure. He's diluted right now. I love Spider-Ham. I love the idea that Spider-Ham made it into a movie. I don't like Spider-Gwen. It's not an original character. Too much crap follows her around. But I heard this was a fun movie. You can let that go. To me, the Spider-Man, I mean, I know we're talking about, yes, about Spider-Verse, but the reason I didn't do a review on Spider-Man Far From Home is that it didn't feel like a Spider-Man movie. I feel like I was watching Iron Man Jr. Mary Jane is Pepper. Whoever his little buddy is that knows his secret identity, that's Happy Hogan from they're all, it's just a cookie cutter version, a Teen Titan version, if you will, of the Iron Man movies. They're, and then they'll throw in some Spider-Man lore to remind you it's Spider-Man. I don't think it's great that he's in the, it's great that Spider-Man got to be in the Marvel movies, but it's all eye candy. We haven't really had Peter Parker in there. We've had Iron Man. It all says exactly what it is when Tony Stark was dying at Endgame, and it was Peter Parker looking him in the eye saying, Mr. Stark, Mr. Stark, and Pepper Potts came over and just pushed him to the side. That's the perfect metaphor for Peter Parker in these Marvel movies. They're not going to elevate him to be something great if Sony's just going to take him away. Okay? Just saying. They're not going to use us. Um Spider-Verse is good. A lot of people taking up for it. H.P. Lovecraft, Spider-Man Far From Good. That's funny, man. So yeah, that's where we're at with things. Okay, so yeah, I've seen some of the the Spider-Man movie. I didn't want to destroy it. Let me tell you something. Tom Holland is a great Spider-Man, but I don't think he's a good Peter Parker. You know what I mean? Tom Holland puts on a hell of a performance. He doesn't take me out of the movie. I mean, there's things there everybody else did, so I don't want to bash the movie because Tom Holland seems like a pretty cool kid, you know what I mean? I love that they have to have Doctor Strange, Cumberpatch, go around with him in interviews so he doesn't spoil anything. For some reason, I love that. That's such a kid thing. This is Peter Parker in high school, and that's such a Parker thing, bleeding over into the real world. Lovecraft is phenomenal. I need to go see this. So there's a movie based on H.P. Lovecraft. Is that what I'm hearing? I'm missing something here. Oh, I'm getting messages. Okay, guys, starting to get messages. We are closing in at 11 o'clock. I might as well go ahead and take a shower, start running a few errands and stuff. Thanks for everybody popping up. Thanks for everybody sticking in these last 10 minutes after I said I was going to go. I'm sorry for anybody that left because I can see my numbers. People were leaving as soon as I said that, I think. Oh, the HP Luck. If you guys haven't read Providence by Alan Moore, I highly recommend that. It's a different kind of story. HP Lovecraft does pop up. The actual character pops up. Character. The actual author does pop up towards the end of the book. Um, Providence by Alan Moore is very underrated, and I couldn't imagine doing a review of it because for a story that feels so simple, yet you can't put your finger on why it's good, and it's going somewhere at the end, which it does. It kind of bleeds into the real world with the last issue where you're just sort of like, oh, this is weird. It gives you an out and out creepy feeling and makes you think about why is H.P. Lovecraft so popular. It's a great read. It's a great read. All right, guys. See you later. Thanks for coming. Again, tomorrow, Alan Moore stream, as long as the river don't rise. And if depending on what time I get back today, we might have another stream tonight. Later, guys.